Imagine being stranded in the wilderness with no modern conveniences at your disposal. Could you survive? Today we're going to explore a collection of old-fashioned survival hacks that have proven their worth over centuries. These aren't just for show, these are the skills that were crucial to our ancestors' survival and could be just as vital for us in a crisis situation. We're talking about creating fire with nothing but sticks, purifying water without a filter, and even foraging for food in the wild. In the modern world, we've become so reliant on technology that we've forgotten our roots. But when the chips are down and technology fails, it's these basic, time-tested survival skills that could make the difference between life and death. Are you ready to uncover the essential skills that could save your life? Let's delve into the first survival hack. The first survival hack we will cover is creating fire without matches. This is an essential skill that our ancestors mastered thousands of years ago, and it remains just as important today, especially in survival situations where modern tools may not be available. So, how can you create fire without matches? Well, there are a couple of friction fire techniques that you can use. The first one is the hand drill method. This technique involves spinning a stick between your hands against a baseboard of wood until an ember is formed. You'll need to gather some dry leaves or grass, known as tinder, to catch the ember and blow it gently into a flame. But what if your hands get tired? That's where our second technique, the bow drill, comes into play. The bow drill uses the same principle of friction, but instead of spinning the stick with your hands, you'll use a bow to spin the stick. This method can be more efficient and less tiring, making it a great alternative to the hand drill method. Here's a step-by-step guide to creating a fire with the bow drill method. First, you'll need a bow, which can be any strong curved stick. Then you'll need a drill and a baseboard, both made from soft, dry wood. You'll also need a handhold to apply pressure to the drill. Lastly, don't forget your tinder to catch the ember. To start, loop the drill in the bow's cord, place one end of the drill into a hole in the baseboard, and apply pressure with the handhold. Now simply saw the bow back and forth to spin the drill. With enough speed and pressure, you'll create an ember. Transfer this ember to your tinder and blow gently to create a flame. Fire is fundamental. It provides warmth, light, and a way to cook food and purify water. Learning to create fire without matches is not just a survival hack, it's a vital skill that connects us with our past and prepares us for the future. Now, you know how to create a spark when you most need it, even without matches. Next up, we will learn how to purify water using natural materials. Water is the essence of life, and in an emergency, securing a clean water source is paramount. So how do we go about this? Let's start by finding a container, ideally a plastic bottle or a hollowed-out piece of bamboo. Cut the bottom off your container and then start to fill it. Begin with a layer of larger rocks, about the size of your fist. This will be your foundation, helping to filter out the largest impurities. Next, add a layer of smaller stones or pebbles. These will catch smaller particles that the larger rocks might have missed. After your pebble layer, add a layer of coarse sand. Sand is a great natural filter, catching even finer particles that manage to pass through the pebbles. Now you're going to need some charcoal. You can use the remnants of a fire for this. Crush the charcoal into small pieces and add it above the sand layer. Charcoal is excellent at removing harmful chemicals and improving the water's taste. Following the charcoal, add a layer of fine sand. This will catch any remaining impurities. Finally, top your filter with a layer of grass or cloth to prevent your other layers from getting mixed up when you pour water in. Once your filter is assembled, slowly pour your water into the top. The water that comes out at the bottom of your filter will be significantly cleaner than it was before, but remember, this water is only filtered, not purified. To make the water safe to drink, you'll need to boil it for at least 10 minutes. This will kill any bacteria or parasites that might be lurking in the water. And there you have it, a step-by-step guide to purifying water using materials you can find in any natural setting. Clean water is crucial for survival, and now you know how to obtain it in any natural setting. Food is essential for survival, but what if you can't just go to the supermarket? Imagine you're out in the wilderness, far from modern conveniences. Your stomach grumbles, reminding you that you haven't eaten in hours. This is where your knowledge of foraging comes into play. Edible plants are a great source of nutrition, and they're all around us. Take dandelions, for instance. Every part of this common weed is edible, from the yellow flowers to the roots. They can be eaten raw or cooked and provide an excellent source of vitamins A and C. But remember, not all plants are safe to eat. Some, like poison ivy and hemlock, can be dangerous or even deadly. That's why it's crucial to have a good understanding of plant identification. always double-check before you eat anything. Of course, plants aren't the only source of food in the wild. Insects might not be your first choice for a meal, but they're packed with protein and easy to find. Crickets, grasshoppers, and ants are among the most common edible insects. Just make sure to cook them thoroughly to kill any potential parasites. And let's not forget about the nutritional powerhouse that is the humble earthworm. They might not look appetizing, but they're high in protein and can be found in almost any moist soil. Remember, though, to purge them by letting them sit in a container of clean water for a day before eating. This cleanses them of any soil in their systems. Berries are another handy food source. Blackberries, raspberries, and strawberries can often be found in the wild. Remember the rule of thumb: if it's bright red or yellow and you're not sure what it is, it's best to steer clear. Some berries can be toxic, mushrooms can be a tricky forage. Some varieties are delicious and nutritious, while others can be deadly. As a rule, steer clear of any wild mushrooms unless you're an expert at identifying them. With these tips, you can expand your survival menu to include the resources around you. Knowledge is power, and in this case, it could be the difference between life and death. So, let's keep learning and preparing. You never know when these skills might come in handy. In a survival situation, knowing where you are is half the battle. But what happens when your GPS fails, your phone dies, or you're in a place with no signal? The answer is as old as time itself. Look up and read the stars and sun. This isn't just a neat party trick or a way to impress your friends around the campfire. It's a vital survival skill that could guide you back to safety. First, let's talk about the sun. Rising in the east and setting in the west, the sun provides a reliable east-west axis. In the northern hemisphere, the sun is due south at noon. In the southern hemisphere, it's due north. By observing the sun's position and movement, you can get a rough idea of the cardinal directions. But what about at night? That's where the stars come in. For those in the northern hemisphere, the North Star or Polaris is a reliable guide. Find the Big Dipper, follow the line created by the two stars at the end of the dipper part, and it will lead you to Polaris. This star stays relatively fixed, showing you true north. In the southern hemisphere, locating the Southern Cross constellation and drawing an imaginary line extending from its longer axis will give you a general south direction. Using the sun and stars for navigation isn't just about knowing which way is north or south. It's about observing your environment, understanding the movement of celestial bodies, and interpreting this information to navigate your way to safety. It's a skill that requires patience, practice, and a sharp mind. Remember, our ancestors navigated vast oceans and uncharted territories using these techniques. They didn't have fancy gadgets or apps, but they understood the natural world and used it to their advantage. So when modern devices fail, remember to look up. The sky has been a reliable guide for millennia, and it can be for you too. With these navigation skills, you can find your way back to safety. Shelter is a basic human need, and in a survival situation, you need to know how to build one. When you're out in the wild, the elements can be harsh and unforgiving. A sturdy shelter can be the difference between a shivery night and a restful sleep. Today, we're going to guide you through the process of constructing two simple yet effective shelters using only natural materials, the lean-to and the debris hut. The lean-to shelter is one of the simplest and most versatile structures you can build. Begin by finding two sturdy trees about shoulder-width apart. Locate a long, sturdy branch and place it between the two trees, forming a spine for your shelter. Then, lean numerous smaller branches against the spine, creating a sloping wall. Finally, pile leaves, grass, or any other debris over your structure to provide insulation and waterproofing. Now, let's move on to the debris hut. This shelter is ideal for colder climates as it provides excellent insulation. Begin by finding a long, sturdy branch and prop one end on a tree stump or rock, allowing the other end to touch the ground. This will serve as your ridgepole. Next, lean smaller branches against your ridgepole, creating a ribcage-like structure. Then, cover the entire structure with leaves, grass, or any other debris, creating a thick, insulating layer. The thicker the layer, the better the insulation. Remember, your shelter needs to be snug to keep you warm. It should be just big enough for you to crawl inside and lie down comfortably. Also, make sure to clear the ground beneath your shelter of any sharp rocks or sticks that could make your sleep uncomfortable. Building a shelter may seem daunting at first, but with a bit of practice, you'll be able to construct a life-saving refuge in no time. These are skills that our ancestors used for centuries, and they remain just as effective today. With these skills, you can create a shelter to keep you dry and warm in any environment. Ropes and knots can be lifesavers in a survival situation. When modern conveniences are stripped away, knowing how to construct a sturdy rope from nature's offerings can be invaluable. Vines and barks, for instance, can be transformed into durable ropes that stand up to the test of time and elements. But it's not just about making ropes. It's about knowing how to use them effectively. Knots are the unsung heroes of survival skills, serving a multitude of purposes from securing shelters to setting traps. There are many types of knots, but some are more essential to survival than others. The bowline, for instance, is a fast and secure knot that can be easily undone, while the square knot is perfect for joining two ropes together. By mastering the art of rope and knot making, you can tackle a range of survival situations with confidence. Now, you can tie knots that could potentially save your life. Before modern medicine, people relied on herbs to treat wounds and illnesses. Now imagine you're in the wild, far from the nearest pharmacy. What would you do if you or a companion fell ill or got injured? Thankfully, nature provides a bounty of remedies if you know where to look. For instance, the yarrow plant with its delicate white flowers has been used for centuries to stop bleeding and disinfect wounds. If you have a fever, the willow tree's bark contains salicylic acid, the same substance found in aspirin. The jewelweed plant, recognizable by its orange or yellow flowers, is a natural remedy for poison ivy rashes. And if you're feeling the effects of dehydration, the succulent leaves of the aloe vera plant can provide much-needed hydration and soothe sunburn. Remember, correct identification is key, and some herbs can have side effects or interact with other medicines. So always do your research before using any new plant. With these herbal remedies, you can treat wounds and illnesses in the wild. Hunting for food is a crucial survival skill. In times of crisis, when bullets are scarce, we need to turn to more primitive methods of hunting. With a little ingenuity and knowledge of the natural world, you can create effective hunting tools from the resources around you. First, let's talk about crafting a spear. Select a sturdy, straight branch about as long as your height. Sharpen one end to a point using a rock or other hard surface. If possible, harden the tip in a fire to increase its durability. Now onto the bow. Again, you'll need a straight, flexible branch for the bow itself. For the string, you can use vines, thin strips of bark, or even a length of your own hair. Pair your bow with a handful of arrows, which are just smaller, lighter spears. With these handmade tools, you can hunt for food even when you run out of bullets. Preparation and knowledge are the keys to survival. In a survival situation, signaling for help can be a matter of life and death. We may become accustomed to our phones being our lifelines, but what happens when they're no longer an option? It's time to go back to the basics, to methods that have been used by our ancestors and are still effective today. During the day, mirrors can be a powerful tool for signaling. By reflecting sunlight, you can create flashes that can be seen for miles. It's a skill that requires precision and a clear understanding of angles, but once mastered, it can be a lifesaver. When night falls or visibility is low, smoke signals come into play. Creating a fire that produces thick, visible smoke can attract attention from afar. By controlling the release of the smoke, you can even send specific distress signals. Now you can signal for help even without a phone. It's all about using what we have in the most effective way possible. Finally, we will cover food preservation techniques. Let's dive into the old-world methods of smoking and drying. Both techniques have one thing in common. They reduce moisture, creating an environment where spoilage-causing bacteria struggle to survive. Smoking not only preserves your food, but also adds a unique flavor that's been cherished for generations. By exposing the food to smoke from a controlled source of heat, you can effectively extend its shelf life. On the other hand, drying is possibly the oldest food preservation method. The sun and wind would naturally dry out foods, but today, we can mimic this process at home or in the wild. By removing water from the food, you're left with a product that's lightweight, compact, and long-lasting. From fruits to fish, these preservation methods can apply to a broad range of foods. With these techniques, you can keep your food edible for months. We've covered a lot of ground today, from creating fire without matches to preserving food in the wild. We've embarked on a journey back in time, rediscovering the survival hacks our ancestors used to weather any storm. We've learned how to purify water with sand, charcoal, and rocks, and how to forage for edible plants and insects. We've navigated using the stars and sun, built shelters from natural materials, and even fashioned ropes and knots from vines and bark. We've delved into the world of herbal medicine, crafting hunting tools, and signaling for help using mirrors and smoke. Each of these skills empowers you to become more self-reliant, equipping you with the knowledge to face any survival situation head-on. Remember, these aren't just cool tricks, they're life-saving skills, so stay prepared and stay safe. Because when the chips are down, it's not about what you have, it's about what you know.